The only people that are buying into this nonsense are equally weak, limp-wristed, virtue-signaling, asshat clowns who have certainly done and said much worse. Hello and welcome to the Elephant Lounge. I am your host Tuesday. I want to thank you for joining me. Norm MacDonald. Last week, the underrated genius comedian Norm MacDonald was told to leave The Tonight Show by Jimmy Fallon because his senior producers were crying. Yeah, crying. Grown adults were crying over something Norm had said. That's right. Old Norm MacDonald didn't hit anyone, didn't crack a chair over anyone's head, didn't kill anyone. He didn't rape anyone either. No, he said something. Well, Tuesday, what did he say? He said something about the Me Too movement, and he was glad that it was slowing down a bit. He also stood up for his longtime friend, Roseanne, because that's what you do when you're friends with someone. You stick up for them. Shocking, I know. He said he felt really bad for her, suggested that she talk with Louis C.K. because he too had lost his career in one swift kick. So when asked about the victims, Norm stated that the victims had not gone through the shame of losing their career. And just to interject, I'd like to know exactly who the victims of Louis C.K. were. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I seem to remember that he had simply asked if he could help himself to himself in front of some ladies. He didn't rape anyone. He didn't force anyone. Yeah, he's immoral. He was married. He's clearly a jerk. But for God's sake, are you trying to tell me these strong, independent women in Hollywood couldn't muster up the words to tell the guy to f*** off? As far as Roseanne, she wanted her character to come back to television as a Trump supporter. That act is apparently considered heresy in Hollywood these days, and people were just looking for something to go after her over. So she made this silly post on Twitter comparing Valerie Jarrett to a primate, much like we see the left do all the time with Bush and Donald Trump. Well, of course, this was immediately turned into, Roseanne is racist. Hang her. The fascist mob on the left, don't tell them they're fascist because they think they're fighting fascism. They decided that a comedian just wasn't allowed to tell a joke because the joke wasn't something more clever like calling Trump stupid or making fun of conservatives for being against abortion. Har, 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 har. Oh, that original comedy that comes from Hollywood these days. My sides hurt. If you haven't heard, Roseanne's character is going to be killed off. In an exclusive with Walkaway's campaign leader, Brandon Strzok, Roseanne revealed that they decided to tell the audience that her death will be due to an overdose of opioids. Isn't that lovely? It's not enough for them to disgrace her, trash her name, slander her, do nothing to stick up for her, abandon her in her time of need, but now they're going to kill her off in this degrading manner. Such fine, upstanding, tolerant people in Hollywood. I'm really so impressed. So remember, you cannot offend anyone. Except for the military, Republicans, right-wingers, white people, males, and Christians. You know, the majority of the country. Everyone else should be considered a sacred golden calf to worship because those minorities, homosexuals, and atheists, they're much too sensitive to handle being joked about. My goodness, how dare we think for a moment they can handle being the butt of a joke? What are you thinking? They're equal or something? Let's get back to Norm. So who in the hell is going to cry over what Norm said? What kind of a weak moron is going to act so upset, so outraged over someone who stated something truthful? Why is it these cry bullies go out of their way to demonize the person they disagree with in order to justify their over-the-top faux outrage? Do they not realize that Norm has been in the business over 20 years, making people laugh? He's never once been involved in a scandal of any kind, not that I can remember. Sure, he's roasted a few people over the years in the name of comedy, but he's never once given the impression that his words are meant to hurt anyone. Give me a break. This wailing and gnashing of teeth is such a phony put on. The only people that are buying into this nonsense are equally weak, limp-wristed, virtue signaling asshat clowns who have certainly done and said much worse. Norm MacDonald appeared on The View after his cancellation on the Jimmy Fallon show in order to, explain his comments. And the great Miss Whoopee Cushion Goldberg interjected the conversation, telling Norm, and I will go ahead and play you the clip so you can hear it yourself.
A stand-up or a funny person, people are asking you questions that, you think your answer sounds fine in your head, but then you say it and it's like, that went over not well.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that this is in part why you got here is because this is very different for you.
Well, Whoopi, yes, the answer did sound fine in his head, and what he said really wasn't that big of a deal until some self-righteous, oversensitive, pro-clutching cry-bullies wanted to make a big deal out of it. So let's take the moronic, washed-up comedian who hangs on to relevancy by a thread appearing daily on The View, a show suited for women who find comfort in their self-righteousness and looking down upon anyone who engages in thoughts other than their own. Miss Goldberg herself. Goldberg has been on national television defending the well-known pedophile Roman Polanski.
It was not, I know it wasn't rape.
Yeah,
there is a
statutory.
Child molest, maybe? I'm not sure.
It was something.
No?
It was something else, but I don't believe it was rape. And when we get all the information, somebody will tell me in my ear. All I'm trying to get you to understand is when we're talking about what someone did and what they were charged with, we have to say what it actually was, not what we think it was.
What he said he did. He gave her Quaaludes. He gave her champagne. She was drugged. She was 13 years old.
They were
He asked her, here's a transcript. But that's what I'm saying. You're 13 years old. She was still a child.
Initially he was charged with rape. Go ahead. And then he pled guilty to having sex with a minor. Okay? And he went to jail. And when they let him out,
45 days.
And when they let him out, he said, you know what? This guy's going to give me 100 years in jail. I'm not staying. And that's why he left. So that's why I wanted to be really clear, because I wanted to know exactly what we were talking about.
Oh, well, if Whoopi doesn't believe what Roman Polanski did could be considered rape, then certainly we should not question her excellency. After all, she's so well known for her in-depth analysis of criminal law in the United States. Certainly, she's played an attorney or a judge in a television show. Far be it from the superior left-wingers out there to ridicule Miss Whoopi or call for her head on a stake. No, she's still on the same show, carrying on like nothing is wrong. And it's funny that I can't find her apology tour anywhere. She never apologized for that. Well, that I remember anyway. Point is, many people, especially comedians, say things. Sometimes they are being serious. Sometimes they are making jokes. But there seem to be a number of people who are determined in looking for a gotcha moment. A moment where they can get really angry and feel really good about themselves because they want to show the world that someone they don't like said something they find to be outrageous. They are so dedicated to being outraged that they have been known to go after people on their own side. So also, last week, I was in the uncomfortable position of defending rapper Eminem. Now, this is a quote from an article. I will have all of the links to any articles or videos that I have mentioned in this podcast. It will be up on my blog. I will provide a link for you to go and peruse at your leisure. Eminem has implied he regrets his use of a homophobic slur against fellow rapper Tyler, the Creator, on his new album Kamikaze. On the track Fall, which features vocals from Bon Iver's Justin Vernon, he raps, Tyler, create nothing. I see why you called yourself a faggot bitch. Clearly, Eminem isn't a right-winger. And after his performance where he channeled an angst teenager unable to cope with the win of Trump, I'm not exactly thrilled with who he has turned into. Yet, I'm also not dumb enough to believe that a slur found embedded in a rap song should be interpreted in the most uncharitable manner. Does anyone really believe Eminem is a homophobe or even a racist, as some have indicated? The answer is no. Here again, we find some people so eager, so thirsty for finding something to be offended about that someone like Eminem is now being attacked. Another thorn in my side comes from those who like to pretend the right has only recently been interested in protecting free speech. Okay, so sure, there are certainly cases of right-wingers over the years getting sand in their vaginas about a variety of things, but mainstream conservatives have always been very supportive of people having the right to express themselves. Years and years ago, Bill Maher wasn't on HBO's Real Time. No, he had a long-running show called Politically Incorrect, and I think it was on NBC. I want to say it was ABC or NBC. Now, one day on this show, this was after 9/11, he made a very dumb comment about how radical Islamists view themselves as being freedom fighters, just like we view our military. His comments were roundly disavowed by both left and right. He was fired, but it wasn't the right that wanted him fired. No, it was people like Michael Savage and Sean Hannity who came out in defense of Bill Maher keeping his job. Though they did not approve of what he stated, he had a right to say it. And let's not forget Fox News' Juan Williams. Now, why would a left-wing guy like that be on such a conservative network? Well, I'm glad you asked, because Juan used to work for NPR. During a news show, Juan made a comment about traveling and how sometimes he does feel a little uncomfortable being on a flight when he sees passengers covered in Muslim garb. This was not long after 9/11. A lot of people, normal people, were on edge. Now, of course, we know not every Muslim is a terrorist, but we also know that a lot of terrorists happen to be Muslim. So Juan said what millions of Americans were thinking at the time. NPR fired him. It was the right wing that took up for Juan. And believe me, we had nothing to gain from it because there's not a damn issue I can think of that Juan and conservatives agree on. Still, the right-wing pundits all stated Juan had a right to express his truth and he did not deserve to be fired. Fox News offered him a job immediately. He's been there ever since. Norm has a new show coming up on Netflix, and I really pray these vultures do not come for him any further, but I do fear they will stop at nothing to bring him down. How many times is this going to happen? How long until Hollywood and the far left wing figure out they are the monster, the bully, the authoritarian that they likely never intended on being? And I shall see you all soon. Have a good one.